Jojolo pasapsida, Jithong, Chiuprito, WNO Daily Broadcast, WDB Jazwale, Tongchong Pavana, where Chonodu, Weka, Ujjwal Rajbhandari, Gulina, Chitana Sokobi, Bazume, Pindu, Weko, Na, Shujima, Chitai, Napayu Jazwale, Wekana, Tano Tidy Dula, Weko the Castis, Anton Soto, Chisan, Weko, Shikana Yatino Karan saying. Google Translate we call lead to we call a package to Google Nepalbhasa to Google Translate Jazo Nyakazono how it is to Google Translate to Jason to Gege Jason to Barena we cause the Chisan Pacha, which is a Kalauzi. We are seeing Napa, New to Titan Nepalbhasa, Bonacho Pingu, Bonamita do Bidatita, wake up into the scholarship fund. Course niche when you go we can also bija you do we go bija chu call gear call genanya you call chu yamali we go the war good we go bija how we go which is niche one the chu yamala gege yasaji the gege yamali we go to wali ma call which is a nyen can you like is we go the home is a kanabala yaguji uzolji
Jojolapa, thank you very much, the best you.
So Ujjwal ju चाहिँ जी अमेरिका नेपालले बुयदी बु खवेको अले लिपा मचबले वेको अमेरिका जालो अमेरिका चाहिँ दखो इंग्लिश है जे चाहिँ अन्य भा चाहिँ वेको उली ठुनो मथु अले लान मसा तर चाहिँ या गुगल ट्रान्सलेट चाहिँ या नजरउँदो गुगल ट्रान्सलेट थ्रु चाहिँ वेको न सेका चाहिँ दिगु दु आछि चाहिँ भला सकाय कि जाक्न वेको चाहिँ थो थेउ कार्यक्रम ज्याजोले वेले वेको न छिज न्यावा भाषा खलान्दी यो भला सकाय छिजा योको इ म विषय चाहिँ छिया सुरे याना चाहिँ so Ujjwal thanks for joining today. So as we discussed, right, we just wanted to talk about this scholarship proposal that you have. So it's just an idea phase. So we just want to let our viewers know that it is not something that we have done much work, and it's not that something that we have decided. We basically decided to go on live to discuss about plans and basically to understand what is the need there, and if there are any feedbacks that people can provide some suggestion on that we can act on. So that's pretty much why we are online here today to talk about this scholarship proposal that you have. So could you kind of describe your vision on a sustainable scholarship that we have been talking about for the Nepalbhasa students? So how do you envision that it will work?
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Dipeshju. Jojolapa, everyone. You know, this all came about, I think, in 2021, I believe, early in January. I was in Kathmandu for about a week, and as part of the Google Translate effort, you know, I did get a chance to visit the Department of Nepalbhasa, the Patan Multiple Campus. And then when I was there, you know, I was sort of talking to the dean at that time and trying to understand the makeup of the student, makeup of the program, the goals and objective of the program, and sort of where there are obstacles, both from a perspective of the department attracting students, and at the same time, maybe there are barriers to entry for some of the students to pursue Nepalbhasa as you know, part of the language arts program. Right. And so it was just a conversation that we had, and something that I've been sort of thinking about for past some time. And I did share this with Dipeshju and others from the Google Translate team a few months back. And so, you know, I think there is this overarching need when we talk about preserving sort of you know, language at risk. And we are doing the right things by taking advantage of technology to preserve the language in some form and format, but that is preservation of language, right? That still indicates that the language is going to die, and we're finding a place to kind of keep it. What we need to also start focusing in parallel is a way to sort of flourish the language. How do we make it more accessible, more, you know, readily usable, and provide platforms and forums through which the language can be further grown, right? It's not just about saving the language, it's about growing the language. Now, we need to start thinking the other half of it. Google Translate, we've been thinking about saving the language. Now think about, okay, how do we grow the usage of the language, right? And part of that, I think, comes from taking advantage of the educational institutes and programs that are already in place. So, the basis of all of this is to sort of build a very strong Nepalbhasa language arts community within Nepal, and maybe even outside of Nepal, right? This is in context of what I've learned. And then I think one thing that's definitely a barrier to entry is an incentive that students need to pursue this program itself, right? So this would, with the scholarship, it would incentivize students who are interested in this program, but are not thinking about, spending their hard-earned money on this program itself, right? Third, there's already a fairly successful program. I think it has about 51, 52 students last I checked, right? And there's a campus, there is a faculty, there is a curriculum. It's pretty well structured. So it's not like we have to go build something new. It's already there, right? So our goal is to just support that effort itself. And so I think if we focus on what's being practiced right now in the Department of Nepalbhasa in the Partner Multiple campus, there's a PhD and a master's program. I think we can support both and then sort of kind of go through that, right? The other thing also I want to kind of stress is around some of the values of the program, right? So we want to build a program that supports a student through the entire journey. The last thing we want to do is make investments up front and then realize, because we can't make investments in the later part of it, that students are dropping or not continuing, right? So we want to look at this as a journey from start to finish, not a point in time kind of a view. Being much of it is in Nepal, right? We want to definitely ensure that we're aligning to regulatory and compliance requirements in Nepal, so that there's sustainability, long-term viability, and we kind of work with the system rather than against the system, right? And then finally, I think the few things are, we need to focus on how do we select candidates based on merit, and metrics that we can measure that are typically based on our merits, and we're very objective about how we select candidates, right? We want to definitely, I'm a big, strong proponent of ensuring that we look at diversity, equity, and inclusion in our selection criteria, right? So it's not for the very few. It's not for, this is not a exclusive program, right? This is an inclusive program. So we definitely want to reach out to, all aspects of the Newah community, as well as potentially all of Nepal, to be able to provide this type of a inclusive program, right? And more importantly, so this is not something that we want to do for 1 year and then forget about it for the next year or struggle, right? So when we build plans, it's looking at the long-term vision. Typically a lot of these scholarship programs that are built in the US are looking at 30, 40, 50, 100-year program outlook, right? So it's not looking at a 2-year outlook or a 5-year outlook. Right? We need to think long-term. Now, every time I talk about scholarship program, the first question everybody asks is like, how much does it cost? What is it? What is the number one cost around this, right? So I've kind of put a budget sort of requirements based on the conversations I had, right? And these are just for reference only, right? This is not what we're going to do. Maybe we don't even start with this many number of students. Maybe first few years, all we do we're collecting funds, right? First few years, we don't even utilize those funds. But if you look at sort of a 4-year outlook, right, or a 4-year cycle, let's put it that way. And the reason I chose a 4-year cycle is there are some PhD students who probably will have to go through a 4-year program, and then there'll be master's students who will go through a 2-year program, right? If we look at supporting 25 students total, that's half of the current student population in the campus itself. We are looking at an annual sort of budget outlay of about $3,000 US, roughly. This is just rough, based on based on a $200 annual fee, which includes tuition, study materials, and incidentals within the campus itself, right? So, if we, and then this would repeat every 4 years, right? So over a period of 4 years, we're looking at about $12,000 every 4 years, we're repeating to support about 25 students, right? Given everything else stays the same. And if we have more, we can support more students. We have less, we support less students. That's perfectly fine. But the goal is, what we don't want to do is get ourselves in a position to have to find funds every year, right? Because one of the things we really want to make sure is it's continuity of the program, right? From start to finish of a student. What we don't want to do is sponsor one student 1 year and then not have the funds to sponsor in the second year, right? So we really have to look at it from that perspective, because the ultimate goal is to make sure the student is able to come out of the program successfully, with the degree that they're pursuing, right? So this is sort of what I've kind of put together. And then finally, from next steps, I think, we're such an early stage of what we're trying to do here, right? As Dipesh, you mentioned, we really want your feedback, really want, your input in how we should be doing this, right? I mean, this is just me alone and, having some conversations, kind of putting this on paper, but I'm sure I'm missing a lot of things. I have not looked into everything, right? So anyone who can provide feedback to, in any way to make this program even more robust, I think that's ideal. So we probably need to identify team members both, globally, especially in Nepal, those who can navigate the system, navigate the rules and regulations, right? We need to definitely look at coordinating our activities with the institute itself. And I think, everybody asks, okay, when are we going to start this, right? And I think we need to be a little bit more reasonable and look at what does our outlook look like in terms of which program calendar year we can align to. We need to develop a candidate selection framework, right? I mean, if we were fortunate to have sufficient budget to support all the 51 candidates, that's great. If not, at least we need to figure out a way to objectively and identify candidates. And then I think there's another big part of this is, how do we make an outreach and messaging plan, right? So that we can encourage students to take advantage of this and then come into the program itself, right? What we don't want to see is the 51 students over the next 10 years, start going down and becoming 30 students, 20 students, 10 students, right? This is to ensure that we have 51 and we're on a growth trajectory to 60, 70, 80 students, right? That's sort of the plan we want, because the students who graduate out of these programs will not just have a degree, but they will have a very robust and understanding of Nepalbhasa as a language arts program. They are going to be the ones who are going to be able to continue it into the next generation, take it to other educational institute where they can potentially be the instructors that are providing services, right? So, and if we think about this, right, if we can tap into all 50 students who's doing this program, for something like Google Translate, maybe they're the ones who will be the next generation of contributors to what we need, right? So there's a long-term viability and in growth that we need to focus on as part of that. So that's all I had. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, that's great, Ujjwalji. Now, this is excellent. This is excellent framework, an excellent idea, and also the funding that you have laid out is great. It kind of give you an idea how much the cost that we are looking at. So, so the thing that you discuss about is the sustainability. So we don't want this to be something like we do the funding for a year and the next year we are basically scrambling to find the money and so on. So, have you thought of some plans on how we might do this? So there's something that I could think of. So, for example, if we have $50,000, right? So we can put it in the bank, and then through the interest, we can fund this scholarship. That's one way to go about it. And even if we go down that route, the problem is who is going to look after that fund? Whose name that fund would be? So all those different things are there. Have you thought of anything based on some scholarship programs in the US or any other foreign countries? Do you have any plans? Anything that you have in mind?
Yeah. So a couple of things I think about, right? And that's a great set of questions and concerns, right? So within US there are models like a trust model, right? So you can build a trust that is, there's no one entity. You can write the sort of the charter of the trust, right? And that charter sort of guides the trust, and the trust is independently managed by either a financial institute or a legal institute or some sort of an institute, right? So I think what we need to do is, from that perspective, look at how do we identify this effort independently as a nonprofit effort, have a trust built around it, and then use that trust to manage the money, effectively the finances around it. There's that aspect, right? And so let's say we have 50,000, and then in if I'm going to use today's numbers, you can pretty much get about 4 to 5% return on that investment. That's tax-free, maybe a little bit more. So even if you get 5%, that's 5% of 50,000 is what, $2,500, right? Roughly $2,500. So that's almost meeting our 3,000 a year cost, almost, right? Now, there's an aspect of we just don't want to collect 50,000 once and we're done, right? It's a matter of collecting, building, collecting, building, right, and over a period of time. And so as we can grow that over a period of time, I think that's key, right? So I don't want to say the goal is to say 50,000 in day one and we're done, right? I think more think about 10 years where we can be, right? Let's not think about what can happen in the next month. Let's think about in 10 years where we can be, and we need to start building plans and capability to support that, right? And I think the other question that kind of comes to mind is, do we need to have this entity in Nepal, or do we need to have it outside of Nepal, right? How do we manage that? There's definitely some of the practical aspects of how do we, move money across boundaries. But it's not something that's new, right? I mean, there are definitely a lot of NGOs and non-government agencies that do this. So I think it's a matter of just kind of finding out the details what that looks like, and then we can replicate that.
Right, excellent. So what you're looking at is some sort of a trust model. I'm not that familiar with how it works in Nepal. So obviously that's why we are here to talk about the idea that we have and get thoughts from the people on how we might proceed on doing, or maybe there is a trust model and that we can go with, or maybe something else there is. So kumi bhazu mejupi naktin ji ujjwal jo ta dila ki jisa we gonna go thoi scholarship to nisoni go to idea we gonna ta dilo we gonna एकदमै प्लान yana ta di gudu thariya was a long term vision jisa thong kone use ko moko ki jisa 10 वर्ष 20 वर्ष 30 वर्षले पाइतो कसो छैन jisa to nisoni go ta ta di gudu okay मध्ये जिजो मेन च्यालेन्ज मेन जिउ jisa स्वेमा रहेको चाहिँ jisa देवा दुरा छिके 50 लाख रुपैयाँ दु 50 लाख डलर दु ठिकै छु र jisa वो देवाइ त गेना छेलिउ वो देवाइ त चाहिँ ट्रस्ट देका या उ खला कि छि नेपालले एकदमै रुल्स त कम्प्लिकेटेड दु ओके छिकपिनी छिया थाना सोया चोपी भाषामै चोपी फेसबुक या जुमे छु छु आइडिया दसा छि थो WNO त सबको आइडी छ छि गेना या छिया छ ठीक छि छु या न चोपी आ थते आ थौको नि चोपी छु गेया छ जी के भरे छि चाहिँ भन्छ छलफल याना चाहिँ वे मोडलले हुने छि खुदाया thanks Ujjwal. So that's excellent, right? Means I think the main challenge here is to come up with a very stable system, something that works and make it sustainable. That's great. So now what I want to do basically is, so you have done all your homework, so you have all the ideas, thoughts, and all you need now is people to help you on getting with these different stages. Now, could you have pretty much put everything in the slides there. Like you said that the next steps is identifying team members.
Yeah, and that's key. Sorry for jumping in there, but the team members is key here, right? Because let's say, for example, we have someone who is familiar with financial and banking systems in Nepal, right? Yeah. From our community, they would be a real asset, right? Someone who probably has legal understanding of Nepali laws, etc. Right? That they would be a great understanding. Similarly, if we can have a counterpart in the US who are working in a banking institute, maybe not just the US, maybe other parts of the world, right, outside of Nepal. It's not necessary that this all has to be kind of set up in the US, right? It can be set up in anywhere in the world, as long as we can maintain, financial compliance and regulatory needs. And there are folks who have either legal or financial sort of understanding of systems that can provide guidance both in and outside of Nepal. I think they're going to be the first key members that we need to sort of make part of our sort of the team to kind of explore the options, right? They'll be the best to kind of give us advice. Second is then start bringing in some educator or a member of the Department of Nepalbhasa, so that they can kind of give us insights as to what kind of trends we're seeing, right? I think those that's a place to start. We can sort of help do the work and guide it, but we need maybe consultants to help us on that front, right?
Right, that's great. Yeah, it means obviously building a team would be the key first step. And after that, you need to, there will be a kickoff program as you listed out there. And the next thing is the selection criteria, all the different things that will be done by the team itself.
Yeah.
So now, like the funding, right? Means we are talking about the scholarships funding. So collecting $50,000 wouldn't be straightforward, wouldn't be easy, of course. Have you already thought of some potential sources of funding?
I think, I think we can definitely reach out. I want to explore, sort of institutional programs that provide large onset of dollar, but at the same time, I think we have to look at this with a little bit more realistic lens, right? $200, and this is for everybody, right? $200, if you were to break it down in a year, is less than $1 a day, right? So in context of how all of us can participate, because this is an inclusive, right? Not just from a perspective of students, but those who also participate and support this. It is an inclusive model, right? So I think there's room for everybody to contribute, right? Because if let's just say we only collect $200 every year, that is one student's life, which is much better than it was before, right? And $200 a day basically means less than $1 a day per person for those who can afford it, right? I mean, it's a matter of affordability as well. So I think there's that aspect. We need to reach out to your community, to reach out to those who are allies of our community, right, to support us through this. There's, I think, a second ask, which you're talking about also is, besides the community, are there any institutes we can reach out to? Right, like U.S. Department of Education. There are similar educational institutes we can reach out to that can provide some amount of funding as well. So I think there's components of this that we can drive across multiple different sources, and we can raise funds, right? So I don't think it's impossible. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's a big challenge for us to raise the money.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, so once we have this framework out there, and once we have identified the right team members and reach out to as many people as possible, I think there should be a lot of people who might have some ideas on the sources of funding.
Yeah.
They might be kind of forthcoming on raising the fund themselves. So hopefully we'll be able to reach our target. So before that, I think we need to form a team here.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. So for me, we're gonna go to $50 lakh यो फन्डिङ चिज थो टेन्टेटिभ को लिपाना चिज थिरा गुलिमा कम खला अफमाली खला वे अनुसार चिज बिचाया गुजी थौ चिज गु खला वाला याना स्कॉलरशिप बारे चिज गूगल ट्रांसलेट ला याना चुनौदु ना ज उज्जवल जीवन दाइदी है गूगल ट्रांसलेट चिज चिउ भाइ त माकिउ थासे थेना तया तै माकिउ हिसाब छौ जिउ चाहिँ छौ माध्यम जुल तर थो भाषा एना मकाते उला छौ ठिकै छु तर यदि भाइ लाइपिए मन त वो छिज भाइ त चाहिँ छिस सेनिपि नेलवाते मन त रहा वो छिस गूगल ट्रांसलेट नेपाल भाषा देखन छिउ भाइ मना चोनी रह्यो चाहिँ ग्यारेन्टी जिम हो उखा वेकन थाइदिउ छोरा छिस छौ भागला वो जे चल मेउ भाग चाहिँ छिस गुथ विद्यार्थी तक फ्युचर वेपि नेलवा त छि मस्त वेक अप इन त चाहिँ छिस गेना छिस ग्वालिया ताकि वेक अप इन थन्चना नेपाल भाषा सेका सिका हाना मेउ सेन्यु न वेक यान्दी उकिला ये छिस थो स्कॉलरशिप यो जाजो हे त कुतो यान सुनो का उजल जु वेक अमेरिका दि वेक अप बालको नेवा भा खला मस जिना छ त याथे आयु हिसाबे भोलि जो थो वेकन सेका चौदु आज चिज फला सका कि 3-4 महिना 16 बेला न्याला फला देगा वेकन पास एका चिज से न्याला भाषा खलाइन दिजी वेक उ इच्छा दु कि मतलब थेना याउ थाइदु ओके छिपे बाजु में चाहिँ बिन गुस वेचन दिबिन ख छिपिन सन छ याउ प्लान दसा प्रपोजल दसा थया दिस छि नापन थु जाया उजल जुगु प्रपोजल दु वे कहिले उके ग्वालियन दिस okay, so Ujjwal, I think so the key takeaway, right? So there are a number of things to do. The key takeaway is basically to identify the right members.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's take as the only action from this discussion today, like identifying the team members. It doesn't need to be from WNO or any particular organization or so. We need people from all around the world with the right expertise and who can contribute.
Yeah. That, and I think the other thing also that's really key is we really need to get feedback, right? I mean, this is one person's idea, which is very, very. I'm sure it's very incomplete, right? So we definitely need a lot more feedback.
Right. Exactly. That's fair enough. Yeah. So let's for the idea. So the idea is right there now. So I think it's good that we came online on WDB to talk about this. So see what sort of feedback we get, and in the meantime, in parallel, we'll continue our discussion and see. We form a committee with and identifying the right members and see where it gets us from there. Maybe in 1 or 2 months' time, we can come back again and talk about the things that we have done so far and progress from there. Okay, that's great. So that's pretty much that we have for the scholarship talk today. So before we proceed, so Ujjwal, you said that you had to leave. Do you have time or?
I have about 5 minutes. I do have
5 minutes.
Call
okay.
already.
So we had this Google Translate as well to talk about. So we could maybe schedule that in a different session. So we'll just take a few minutes in that 5-minute time slot, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah. Dipesh, can I have one question with the Ujjwal?
Yeah, please. Could you please quick? We have
only 1 second. Hi, Ujjwal.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Hi, Ujjwal. How are you?
Hello.
Namaste.
I'm good.
Yeah, I have just one simple question, small question on this. Now, we are now organizing, running the first time World Newah Nesalisa Kasa, that is the quiz contest. So this is also one of the milestone to promote our Nepalbhasa, including the culture for among the all young generations. And so now we are just running this program through collecting some funds from different individual with the advertisement. So my simple question, because you have limited time, is there any possibility to support for the continuity of this CASA, I mean the quiz contest in the future? Because this is once if you encourage to the young generation from this CASA, they will go, they are eager to learn lots of things, because to come to competition, they have to learn. So this is one of the motto to give the young generation for the Nepalbhasa, especially from the outside Nepal, I mean around the world, the Newah living around the young generation living around the world.
So we have less time.
Thank
so
you.
So funding wise, is there any possibility?
Yeah, I think we can definitely explore, right? I mean, I don't know if you're asking funding in context of what we just talked about, or funding just as a one-time ask, right? So I think we just need to.
This is a little bit funding for if you get some little money to just do some like a basket for at least run for next 5 to 10 years. Then that means we can generate our from our own. But currently we need some basic some fund to run this activity.
Yeah. Okay. So so that means it's basically for the long-term stuff, right? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we can make that an ask in this, right? So we can add this as part of this overall framework, or we can create a separate framework for it.
Yeah. So let's take it offline. That's a good idea. So we will take it offline and see.
Thank you.
That. So we have another. So we have 2 raised hands there. We'll try to squeeze in 2 minutes. Santhabirju, could you please go ahead and ask your question if you could turn on your video.
Good evening. I think and heartily congratulate Ujjwal Rajbhandari for his excellent idea of this scholarship. I very much appreciate. And I want to add, if you permit me, I want to add something to that. The thing is that now millions of Newahs are staying outside Nepal, and the young section of the people Newahs who are outside Nepal, there is very little chance of going back to Nepal. That's what I am seeing. So will it be a nice idea if we could include in the scholarship 4 people from outside Nepal, 1 in the America region, 1 in the Europe region, Europe and Middle East region, 1 in the Asia Pacific region, and 1 in the SAARC region, India. And I can tell you, in India only, more than 1.7, more 17 lakhs Newahs are staying in India only. So if you can promote something for the at least 4 people outside Nepal, that will be excellent idea. If you permit me to say that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I think that's a great idea, right? I mean, we're just at the beginning of this, right? So I think as we are able to grow this, I think we can start looking at much broader objectives, right? So I think that's a great idea over a period of time.
Yeah, I think we can also discuss that offline as well. So this is today's discussion is the main thing is to get feedback. That's an excellent feedback. So one more question before we wrap up. Binodju has raised a hand. If you could ask the question real quick.
Jojalapa Ujjwal, it's a Binod from Kathmandu. Thank you for your initiative on Nepalbhasa. I have seen that you have a scholarship program for a master level and PhD level. But however, I'm a student of a bachelor level studying Nepalbhasa Sahitya. So do you have a plan for a scholarship program for a student like us for encouragement? Thank you.
You must have seen the slide where I just had the PhD and the master student, right? That was just an example of from what I understood, right? I mean, there's no reason why we can't expand the program, right? So I think all of this is pointing to the need, right? So there is a need for this. I think there's a need for this. There's desire within the community to support this, right? And I think it's a matter of just taking the next step, organizing the right folks, and then start putting plans in place on how to enable this, right? But as I said, one of the key values of this scholarship program is to be as inclusive as possible, right? So diverse and inclusive. So bring in everybody from different parts of life, both from an education system perspective as well from a social perspective, right? So bring everybody and make it as inclusive as possible for us, both from those who are contributing and those who are benefiting from it.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Ujjwal, do you have time? We have probably one more raised hand.
I could do one more.
Yeah, okay. So, Prajendra, please go ahead and ask.
Hello, Ujjwal. Prajendra here from Kathmandu.
Joseph.
Yes, I saw your scholarship program, and so I just wanted to advise you on the schemes you had made. So you said so your plans were like $1,000 for the first year, and second year also $1,000, and third year goes 1,000, and fourth year goes 1,000. Right, but that's not how things goes around here. So just my little advice. So in few days, our gas price has increased about maybe 10 rupees per liter in this last few days. So there's increment every year. So if you put your constant like this, I mean, if you don't use a constant, and I think so it will not work in the future. Like for example, so if you put 15% increment per year, right? So in the fourth year, you will have something like 1,524, something like that, right?
Got it.
So this is the practical thing that goes around here,
Yeah,
right?
That's a great point, right? This is a very engineer's output. I have no background in finance and accounting, right? And I'm looking at it as an example, keeping it very simple. Definitely, over a period of time, we know in America, the education system is very expensive now than before. And I'm sure this is going to be the case in Nepal as well, right, over a period of time. But this is just an example. This is not, you shouldn't read this as we are only going to target 3,000 a year. This is just an example of how I'm kind of thinking.
I just wanted to point out some practical things,
No, that's great.
Yeah. Because I find that it's in the fourth year, this is a 1,500. If you put 15% as constant per year, right? So it might.
Practical side you do need. $100 $200 way from $200 magafu. $300 मालिफू, $400 मालिफू, वो यहाँ सेकेंड ईयर $500 मालिफू, वो चीज़ वाली पर बिछाया हो जी, अच्छी वो प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपेक्टेड है लोगों को लाइक एक सुबह, जो ऐसा चीज़ थों इना मन तो वो का उधर जो many meeting today. Thanks Ujjwal for coming today. We will continue our discussion on Google Translate later on.
Thank you.
I think you have to leave, so I'll just make a quick announcement and we'll wrap up for today.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
Yes. Thanks Ujjwal. Jojo pa ana sokni wa zume bi a thong chiu jajo thane ko jai ke chibyo chaka gut thong we kala thai jilo ke bare chaka bichai ndi so chiu pri chu bicha dasa chi chu sujab dasa WNO the message chai di so ale plus maybe na su monu ta chikwi chu money su mushupin dasa etho project e chai thong chai gwali ya phai che chu na tayu dasa we ko pin ta chaka chi ta support ta gwali ndi so उली चाहिँ झिउ कने झिउ निसली सकासदु झिउ कुनै शनिबार नापाङ्गु एपिसोड छिसन सेरेका नापाङ्गु गेम सेरेका आज कने दोस्रो निगुगु गेम कनेलु 5:15 बजे सुरु जी ओके चाहिँ छि थो जुमे जिउ कारण छि जुमे चाहिदी छ कने छि इन्टरभ्यु कार्यक्रम WDB दैमखुजी छि मेरो छि क्विज फोकस आउजी अले छि आइतबार चाहिँ झिउ पाख मैजु गुहेश्वरी श्रेष्ठ वेक छि नापामा सहरी योजना आयोगसम्म दुजना जुयादिरि बुदु अले नगर शिक्षा समितिमा दुजना जुयादिरि बुदु अले हान नापनाप नेपाल भाषा व्यवस्था समिति वेक दुजना जुयादिरि बुदु एकदमै डाइनामिक मनु वेक यो खन्यन्त्र जिम थाना छि दखन योकै छि थाना मनु दु पियाछमपि छिबिना छायदि रयो पला सकाइ छन उली दासी थयो ज्याजो थने कोचाइ योकैको सुबा